Hello scholars, welcome back to art. Let's go back to our foldable that we made. Miss Prather needs to find hers. I believe it's... Okay. And let's review our elements of art. So the first element of art is color. So color, just like we talked about, we have three primary colors. They're blue, red, and yellow. And what are primary colors? Primary colors are the three colors that create all of the other colors. So if you combine red and blue, you get purple. Red and yellow creates orange, and blue and yellow creates green. And we can put all of these colors that we made on our color wheel, and that's what this is called. Okay, now next we have line. And a line is simply a dot that went for a walk. Now we have thin lines, you have thick lines, wavy lines, zigzag, and I have my lazy line. Next we have shape. So shape and form are really different things. Remember we talked about this. Shape is something flat. There's no dimension to it. There's no depth. So this post-it note is flat. This is a shape. This, however, is not flat, right? This has form and volume and dimension, so this is called a form. So do we see the difference between these two? This one's flat. This is not flat. So in our elements of art questions that I asked you on Friday or Thursday, I asked you about artwork number 2. Number 1, artwork number 1, my bad, I'm sorry. And I said, what element of art do we see based on the questions that I asked? So we see that it feels like there's something you can hold in this painting, correct? So is that a shape or is that a form? So let's look at our shapes and our forms. So this, I can't hold the shape, but I said something you can hold with dimension and has sides. So the shape is really flat, right? However, the form I can hold and it has sides. Let's look at another example of form. Let's look at this. This has sides. Do we see that? There are 4 sides, actually 5 sides, and a top. Okay? So shape and form are two different things. Shapes, we can have geometric and we can have organic. Now what does that mean? So a geometric form, or shape, would be something like this. It's a square, right? This is a geometric shape. An organic shape would be something like this blobby cloud that I made. Kind of looks like a flower, kind of looks like a cloud, but it's definitely something you could find in nature, right? So this is a geometric and an organic shape. Do we see the difference? This has straight sides. This has rounded and different kinds of sides. So there's no predictability in an organic form, or a shape, Okay, now let's move on to form. And a form has depth and dimension, right? We talked about what depth is. So there's width, which is how wide something is, and there's height, which is how tall something is, and then there's depth, which is how far back something goes. So if we look at, let's look at this tissue box. This has depth, so it's got a side, a side, a side, a side, right? But it also goes back a few inches on each side. So if you're looking at it in space, kind of from the side, it goes back in space, okay? And we can talk more about that another time, as long as we understand that there's a difference between shape and form. Shape and form are not the same thing. I know it sounds like they are, but they're not. And a good example is just this picture right here that we drew. This is a shape, and this is a form. Okay, let's move on to value. So value is the difference between light and dark. Most of you got it right on number 3. So we see from the top here it goes dark and then it gets lighter at the bottom. Do we see that? There is a lot of texture, and I saw some of you answer with that question as well. But the main focus and my main question was, what makes it look like it's going from dark to light? And if you can tell me where the light source is, that would be awesome. Does anyone know where it is? The light source is most likely directly in front of this object or a little below it. because it's lightest on the bottom and it's darkest on top. Remember we talked about light source and how it's the closer it is to the light source, the lighter it is, and the further away it is, the darker it gets. Okay, we have texture. Texture is the way the surface of something feels. So for example, let's look at this. This is some string I have. This is kind of bumpy, right? If you look at it close up, it's definitely really bumpy. Where is the... If you look at it close up, it's definitely really bumpy, and it's braided too. But braided can be kind of a version of bumpy, right? And if we look at this ruler, it's really smooth. And I saw some of you answered for your own kinds of textures that you put in here. Some of you said wet, which I understand might be how something feels. However, wet is not a texture because it's not the way something is just made on its own. So this paper can become wet, but it is originally very smooth, right? It is a smooth paper. So what we're talking about when we talk about texture is the way that something permanently feels, the surface of it, not necessarily how the state of its being. So something being wet or hot or cold is more having to do with outside effects, so things that are happening to it instead of what it already is. So if I am already, I guess, smooth as a person, I have skin, right? So I can become cold or hot or wet, but things have to happen to me for that to happen. Do we understand that? Okay, and lastly we have space. A lot of you, most of you, about a good 90% of us got this question right. Uh-oh, it's kind of hard to see it, huh? Let me just bring it closer. Okay. So space is the area in, around, above, and below something. So let's take a look at this marker on the sketchbook. So the space is around it. This is the object that is occupying this space. So a good way to think about space is to think of it as an empty jar. So there's a lot of space in here that's not filled, right? So we're going to talk about the space that's inside of something. So I'm going to put one styrofoam ball in, and now this first styrofoam ball is filling in part of that space, but it's not fully filled in, right? So let's put in another one, and another one. See what's happening to our space? It's getting smaller and smaller. Do we see that? One more. And two more. So now, the space that was originally there is a lot less. There's not as much space, and it's being occupied or filled by something else. So that's what I mean by occupying space. Alright, we reviewed our Elements of Art foldable, and we're going to go ahead and review our motions really quick. Let's go ahead and stand up and do that now. Color, line, shape, form, value, texture, and then space, space, space. Remember? Because it goes out, out, out like an echo. So that's space, space, space. So let's go ahead and open up to the next blank page in our sketchbook. On top of that page, I want you to write these words. You're going to write them big and fun and pretty. Contour, and we'll figure out what that means in just a second. Now this shouldn't take you too long to write these words. If you're taking you too long, you need to figure out another way to write them. We'll come back and make them look pretty later on. Contour lines, and we're going to draw a line underneath that. So what is a contour line? Goodness gracious, I've never heard that word before in my life, Miss Prather. Well, let's go ahead and first write contour lines again in our best Spalding handwriting. Contour line, and then do a little colon, put 2 dots. So let's go ahead and look at an example first of a contour line, and then we can decide what a contour line actually is. So we're going to put our hand on our page. Don't put it right next to where you wrote the word contour line. It's really hard to see, isn't it? You put your hand on the page. Okay, and what I want you to do is just trace your hand. Don't rush it. It doesn't have to look perfect, but I want you to take some time to do this. Okay, so what we've just done is outlined our hand, correct? We don't have any of the details that are on our hand in this picture. So there's no wrinkles, there's no nail polish, there's no fingernails, nothing, right? So that's what a contour line is. A contour line is an outline of something. It describes the edge of an object. So let's try one more time with something else. Find something small in your house, maybe like, if you have another pencil or a marker around you, I'm going to put that down here. And we're just going to trace it. This one moves a lot, doesn't it? It looks a little funny because it's just a shape, but this is a contour line drawing up my marker. So a contour line, let's go ahead and write our definition, is an outline of an object. That's all it is. So on your next blank page, or actually let's go behind the page that we just worked on. And you're going to outline your hand one more time. And I want you to tell me now, what is this line called that we're using? What are we doing? We're creating a what? Not an outline. That's right, a contour line. We're creating a contour line. There's a few different kinds of contour line drawing. One of them is something called a blind contour. What is a blind contour? A blind contour is just like a contour line drawing. It's an outline. But here's the catch, you can't look at your picture. You can only look at what you're drawing. It's kind of scary, right? But I think that you guys can do it. So here's what I want you to do. I'm going to show you what it looks like, and it looks a little funny because I'm not going to be looking, okay? But I'll be looking at you, and I won't be looking at my paper, and then I'll show you what my paper looks like. So what this does is it helps you to understand how to better draw something. It sounds like the opposite, but it actually helps you grow more as an artist, okay? So I'm going to look at my hand, and I'm going to put it in kind of a funky position. So I'm going to hold it like this. Okay, and I'm not going to look at my page. Okay, are you ready? It looks a little tough. It probably wasn't Miss Prather's best drawing, was it? Let me try it again. Hold it again. Okay. Ooh, I looked at my paper. Did you guys see that? My bad. Well, I think this one's worse. But you know what? It's okay. This is what you're doing. You're helping yourself grow as an artist. So what I want you to do now is put your hand in kind of a fun position. It needs to be appropriate. I would encourage you to hold it to your side or something. So I'm going to ask you on your paper, on the page behind your notes, go ahead and draw your blind contour drawing of your hand. I want 2 of them. If you run out of space on this page, go to the next blank page. Now make sure, before you do that, that when you run out of space on this page, you turn it back over to the front of your notes, turn your sketchbook over, and then go to the next page to make sure that you're not going to the back of the last page you worked on, okay? So go ahead and do that, and what I'd ask for you to do is take a picture of your blind contour drawings and submit them on Google Classroom. All you have to do is on the assignment page where you have all the instructions and it has the video and the Google form, just on the right side it says upload a picture. You're going to upload a picture with your images in your assignment, and that's all you have to do. If you're still having problems, shoot me an email. I'll help you out. All right, guys. I'll see you later. Bye.